The silence of my suburban sanctuary was shattered by a sound that made my chest clench. A front door slam so violent, the frames holding 20 years of family memories shuddered. Before the echo died, she was in the kitchen, a whirlwind of polyester. Fury and misplaced authority. Every vein in her face was tight, with what she clearly believed was righteous indignation, and she swung a clipboard in the air like a self-appointed sheriff brandishing a warrant. The glint of her HOA president pin was a small, mocking beacon in the warm afternoon sun. "This is the third violation this month." She practically shrieked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Your lawn is half an inch too high. Your trash cans were on the curb for 37 minutes too long. And don't even get me started on that monstrosity you call a mailbox." I stood immobilized at the living room's edge, my coffee mug frozen halfway to my mouth, watching this stranger trespass on my peace. She moved with an invasive entitlement, running her finger along my clean countertop, then, unbelievably, flinging open my refrigerator door to peer inside with a look of profound disgust. It was the moment the shock dissolved into cold, hard training. "Ma'am," I said, my voice dropping to a low, stable register, the sound of an authority that no homeowners association can override. "You need to exit my private property now." She pivoted on a dime, her perfectly coiffed hair whipping around her like a dramatic stage curtain. "I am Karen Thompson, president of Willowbrook," she declared, puffing out her chest, "and I have the right to inspect for compliance." As her hand reached for my personal cell phone, presumably to snap evidence of my supposed tyranny, I moved instinctively. Just 3 weeks earlier, I'd hung up my shield after 20 years on the police force, trading the relentless sirens and chaos for the quiet dream of barbecues, simple gardening, and a yard where my flag flew the right shade of red, white, and blue. I was Detective James Morrison, commended for service, but now just Jim, hoping to enjoy a peaceful retirement. Karen Thompson had made it her mission to ensure that wouldn't happen. From the moment I pulled into the driveway, she had become my suburban shadow. My mailbox was a hair too low. My driveway had a dust particle she deemed a microscopic oil spill. She was a relentless machine of nitpicky rules. My new neighbors, weary veterans of her 5-year reign, had warned me with a resigned shrug, "That's just Karen. She thinks she runs a military base, not a neighborhood." I thought I could handle one difficult personality. I'd talk down armed robbers for crying out loud. But after the cookout, everything escalated from annoyance to a genuine invasion of privacy. She'd shown up at the party with a tape measure, announcing that my grill was 4.7 feet from the property line, not the required 5. It was psychological warfare after that. Anonymous, typed, all-caps notes were shoved through my mail slot daily. "Your doormat is not regulation. Brown. Your hedges are asymmetrical." She began staking out my yard, using a stepladder to peer into my garage and snapping flash photos over my privacy fence at all hours, claiming she was documenting architectural inconsistencies. Then came the ultimate betrayal of trust. A neighborhood Facebook group dedicated solely to publicly crucifying my property, where she'd even photoshopped my lawn to look dead and brown. That afternoon, I was blissfully unaware, trying to drown out the week's tension by replacing a few warped fence boards in the backyard. Classic rock humming through my noise-canceling headphones. I missed the sound of my unlocked door being opened. But Karen didn't. She had been watching, waiting for the split second I'd left the front entry open while carrying lumber. To her, my home wasn't a private sanctuary. It was a crime scene waiting to be documented. She slipped in silently, fueled by self-importance, but she never anticipated who she had truly cornered. As she stood there, clipboard still raised, my voice cut through her theatrical rage. The calm, absolute authority of a man who had faced down real criminals. "Ma'am," I repeated, the word now a warning, "you just committed unlawful entry. 20 years on the force taught me one thing. The minute you crossed my threshold, you crossed a line. Now, what's your attorney's number 45 minutes later? The satisfying ache of manual labor in my muscles. I came back inside for a drink. The backyard work with the loud music had kept me blissfully insulated from the front of the house. I walked into the dining room and froze. Karen was bent over my table like a common thief, surrounded by my personal life. My mail, bills, a private letter, even a birthday card for my mother was spread out in neat, violated stacks. She was photographing everything. My kitchen drawers were ajar. My private notebook had been flipped open, and my calendar lay exposed. "What exactly do you think you are doing?" I asked. The sound was flat, cold, and utterly detached, the tone of an interrogator who knows the case is closed. She straightened instantly, clutching her clipboard like a child's security blanket. "I'm conducting a lawful HOA inspection. I have the authority to investigate reported violations." "No," I countered, pulling out my personal phone and tapping the record button. "You have zero authority to enter my private residence." I let the words sink in. "That is breaking and entering, Karen. It's also trespassing, invasion of privacy, and, given what you're photographing, potentially identity theft." She let out a sharp, dismissive bark of laughter. "Don't be ridiculous. The HOA charter grants me full inspection rights. It's all perfectly legal." I couldn't help the small, wry smile that touched my lips, just enough to make her falter. "Really?" I folded my arms, the stance of a patient predator. "Show me the clause, Karen. Show me where it says you can enter a private, single-family residence without consent. Go ahead, I'll wait." Her face cycled through shades of pink and crimson as she frantically shuffled the papers on her clipboard. It's implied," she stammered, desperation creeping into her voice. "How else am I supposed to ensure compliance from the inside?" I replied, "The same way a normal person would, by standing on the outside." I reached into my wallet and flipped it open. The moment the police department seal and the bold letters of my badge came into view, her entire persona shattered. The color drained from her face so fast, she looked like a statue painted white. "You're a cop," she whispered, her voice barely a fraction of its former siren pitch. 20 years on the force," I confirmed, then gestured to the corner of the living room. "And that camera? It's been rolling since the second you barreled in. The one in the kitchen caught you going through my drawers, and the one by the front door recorded you walking in without permission." Her clipboard slipped from her numb fingers and clattered to the hardwood floor. Panic set in. "This is a misunderstanding. I thought I heard you call out, 'Come in from the backyard,'" she pleaded. I raised an eyebrow, letting the absurdity hang in the air. "Through my noise-canceling headphones? Impressive hearing? Karen!" I pulled out my official work phone and started dialing 911. Her eyes ballooned as the reality of her predicament, a civilian arrest by a retired cop in her own OA fantasy, hit her. "Wait!" she blurted, taking a jerky step forward. "We can work this out. I'll leave right now. We can pretend this never happened." "That's not how crime works," I replied calmly. "You don't get a do-over after you commit a felony. Because you got caught." I brought the phone to my ear. "Dispatch, this is Detective Morrison. Badge 4729. I need units at my residence for a burglary in progress. Suspect is still on scene." Karen's knees buckled, and she collapsed into my dining chair, the very spot she had been leaning over while rifling through my life. Tears welled up, streaking mascara down the cheeks that had been so tight with arrogance only minutes ago. "Please, I have a reputation. This will ruin me." "You should have considered that before you broke into a police officer's home," I stated, my voice as steady as granite. "Or before you broke into anyone's home. My badge doesn't make this a worse crime. Karen, it just means I know exactly what charges you're facing." Outside, the rising wail of sirens cut through the quiet suburban air. Desperation turned to outright terror.